How's it going? It's bigSHow theGod. And today's thought of a God is evidence-based mindset. See, evidence is not as easy for some people as we think. And so questioning what we think becomes really difficult because we're good at prescribing to something and following something that's it, that is the reason, that is the cause, that is the evidence. And what's really interesting is that we have our system that's been developed really well is science. So we've got science, and that's a really comprehensive process and system to determine facts, to determine laws of science, gravity and things of that nature. And then theories, which in science, a theory has a lot of measurable evidence to get to that point. And hypotheses, which require less evidence, but are still going through the process of being challenged. So a lot of people don't realize that, and that's cool. The point is that having an evidence-based mindset would lead you to this, generally. And it's not foolproof, but it does allow for change. It allows for new evidence to be structured and understood and become either a law or a fact or a strong argument towards a particular subject. So, we have those in place now. They've been evolving for a long time. And it seems quite difficult to be able to go through this process of figuring this sort of stuff out. And it makes sense that it would be. Because if we look at it, we're taught by in most cases, or more cases than not, we're taught by the parents, the people that gave birth to us, and then the people around us that may or may not have given birth to us, but are generally taking care of us until we get to an age that We can take care of ourselves. That's kind of how a human species gets to that point. It doesn't do it on its own. I don't think Tarzan, a baby Tarzan, is true. It's probably not going to happen. A monkey or an ape, I'm pretty confident they're not taking on babies too well, to the level that you have to with a human baby, that they're probably going to survive. It'll take a bit. You probably have to have a lot of babies before one of them would survive, I'd say. That's how evolution works. You'd have to have a lot more die before you get some success. And there's someone that's successful, there'd be a lot to it. But anyway, I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole of examples of science. So I'd like to think rationally most people would agree with science. But even when you do agree, you have to kind of have a skepticism about you, even though you're going to have that anyway. But where it gets tricky is to have more skepticism about stuff that you were just told or taught versus what science says about it, what the science review says in general terms. The science doesn't prescribe you something to live by. It generally shares the news. It shares the result, the findings of the experiment or of the testing or of the physics and biochemistry that's happened. So as an example, we've got oxygen in the air, apparently. Lots of people can't see it, but it's a fact. It's a fact that there's oxygen right in front of me now, going through my lungs and exhaling out, apparently into a different gas, a CO2 gas, and that's happening whether I believe it or not. But we've got lots of tests and experiments and evidence based to state that's true. It's a true, it's undeniable to me, but I guess it can be deniable to somebody else, given the same access to the same information and stuff of that nature. Yet you might have just been told that when you're a child that you're breathing oxygen. Whatever, you keep moving, right? It doesn't interest you. You're like, so, and it's like I'm eating, I'm drinking, I'm sleeping. That's all I'm doing. I'm then looking for some more food, and I keep moving, right? Which we seem to have evolved into this position where we can review stuff and look at evidence for whatever's happened. So with an evidence-based mindset, it supports a lot of the other podcasts that I've done, in that I always want to question myself and what's going on and what's true. I have this thing where what's true matters to me. Not in the sense that knowing what's true means I'm going to go and change the world with it. It just matters to me what's true. I find that every time I find out something that's true that I may have perceived wasn't, or didn't even know was true, maybe some useless information, but when there's something that I find out that's true, I know that I'm better for that. versus thinking the opposite, or thinking another thing was true, or B, being ignorant to that fact anyway, of not knowing that that was a fact, not even knowing that that was a thing. You know what I mean? Like, and if evidence seems to be the only way that I know that that's true or not true. So having that as a mindset all the time allows me to change, allows me to be open to new information, even though I've been criticized and even challenged that I am closed-minded, which I guess is something to consider. And that I can agree with, in the sense that when you use evidence to get you to here versus a story or just, I don't know, to get here, it does take another level of work and evidence to get me off this evidence. All right. I'm not closed. So if someone said there's not oxygen in the atmosphere, there's nothing, or it's something else, trying to put the two together, that's not closed-minded for me to be skeptical on that and to disagree, or to go, well, where's your evidence? Show me more evidence. And your evidence is, now if your evidence is something that points in that direction, well, that's great. And then we stick it as a hypothesis. We stick it in the system and the process. And a lot of great minds and a lot of great work will go in to either disprove it or to prove it is correct, right? You'll experiment on that and go, oh, whoa, it appears to be true. Perfect. That's not closed-minded. That's actually the process. But when you don't have any evidence supporting your claim, well, that's a problem. And it's not a problem to everybody else. It's a problem with your evidence, I would suggest. Because I want to know the truth. I've said that from the beginning. If I want to know the truth, I'm not closed off. But understand that I'm coming from a reasonably educated perspective of all the information, of all the understandings of reality and how the world spins at the moment, and that's built on decades and hundreds of years of real evidence, scientific evidence, to get us here, regardless of my opinion. So like I say, it opens me up to be disproved and ready to take on more information. But I find it does end up looking like because it's going to take a lot of work. You've got to prove your point. You know, if you're gonna come against the scientific method, your method has to either prove it's better or show some evidence of it. Now, if you want us to not have any of those methods to it and just take it on what? Take it on your opinion. Well, I'm not being closed-minded. I'm just being fucking realistic and being honest and being truthful and saying, well, if we don't have a system, then what do we have? We have your opinion, which ain't enough. Your senses and your what you saw and what you heard and what you felt ain't worth shit, really. It just isn't. I can feel something right now, and it ain't worth it. It can add some bit of context to it. It ain't enough though. It ain't enough. I'll tell you that much. I'm not taking that there's air in the atmosphere just on point blank a story. Now some people do. Some people take it as just it's there. I got it. I don't. There's more information and knowledge that comes from knowing that it actually is there. Have I done experiments to prove it? No, haven't. That's true. But it's pretty comprehensive that there's oxygen in the air. That water is made up of hydrogen and oxygen. There's lots of, you have to get right to the framework of science to go to undermine that. But at the end of the day, you need a better model or something else to assert that. And that's a lot for people to take. But if we go to so that's my roots and grounding for most things. And then from there, we can apply it. I'll apply it to pretty much any other thing in my life, because it narrows down my weaknesses. It helps me work through emotion. It helps me work through being clarity. It helps me work through my fears, my dislikes, my likes. It enables me to forecast and project from stuff that's evidence-based. I just think it's risky if you do it another way. So yeah, I'm pretty strong on an evidence-based mindset, and I get it wrong. I'll admit, times, not often, but when I get it wrong, it was still had some evidence in there, but I can still get it wrong based on what I thought. So that's my piece on the scientific background. And so when we have that as a mindset, say that I have it as a mindset all the time, it's really helpful for blind spots that I have, because it leads me down having to go find out what's the truth behind that, what's real. And then when I find that was true or not true, leads me to going, well, what is true and what is not true? And we keep going until we get somewhere, depending on the subject, and depending on what's required. There's a level of truth. But the great thing about doing that process of getting to a level of truth, whether you go 3 layers deep or 4 layers deep or 2 layers deep, however deep you get on it, and let's say the rest is kind of wellish known, what happens is you're sitting here with this as your starting point or knowledge base, and then you can create. So you create from that. So you can create stuff from this evidence-based position, which I find has more success. has more grounds to explain to anybody or anything on anything, because there's lots of questioning the processes, which gives you more truth in the project, especially when we've got variables. Now, depending on the subject matter, the project that I may be doing are involving human beings, and human beings are not as predictable as an experiment, right? We just are not. We can generally predict it. There's still a level. There's a level when you get to different levels of predictability, what someone will or will not do, or could and what can and can't do, right? And so it's always an experiment for me when I'm using people in it, in the project, how far we can take it. You know, there's an argument saying if I just had a computer or a robot, we could take it as far as we could. Don't have one of those in there. I've got a human here. So that human piece tends to be complicated. So then, knowing those sorts of things, you start having to practice truths and facts from a human. And a lot of times that data is still in a story, an opinion. So I have to have this mindset to be able to strip away, is that an opinion? Is that your story? Is it true? So then when it's human to human, human to humans, now we've got lots of stories, right? Lots of I did this, you did that. I didn't do this, I didn't do that going on. So then we go, well, where's the fault in the chain? Where's the gap? Where's the issue of this particular piece? And then we get into some more, is that I will withhold a piece of information, preempting that it's me that caused that, right? That's no use to me in an evidence-based system. What's hard about it is I need the truth, regardless of whether you perceive it as correct or incorrect. I need the truth. If you did it or you didn't do it, it needs to be true. Did you or didn't you? Or did you? Did you do it? Okay. Yes or no? Yes, but. And it's like, fuck. So, yeah. And the reason I use that is 99% is to do on myself. This isn't to do on others. It's really to do with myself. Because if I increase my self-awareness and I look at what's true and what's not true within myself, that's where I get most of the benefits. Because most people benefit from the more truthful I am. You don't benefit from my information being not true or being incorrect or being bullshit. You know, I'm not much use. And in fact, I'm worse if I'm influential. If I'm already perceived as someone that has sound advice, then you're worse. you're worse when you're not truthful. When you're influential, it's 10 times worse, in my opinion. It's just my opinion. Well, the bigger your audience, the more truthful or not truthful, I think it matters. That's all. And so yeah, I think that's the takeaway from this, is that it's self-centered again, as a lot of my things, but it's a mindset that I encourage anybody to challenge themselves on by questioning, is that true? Where's the evidence for that? And then here's the hard part. Is that evidence based on what I want it to be, or what I feel comfortable with, or what everybody else feels comfortable with or not feel comfortable with, or from, I don't want to appear stupid, I don't want to appear disrespectful, I don't want to appear all these types of things, all these judgment things, and instead of, it's just true. Is it true? And am I have the ability to share it? And so, and the reason I have this spin is to just view it on myself, is that I realize not everyone gets it or understands it. And even if I explain it and understand it to that person, that they may never get it. Doesn't mean I don't not, when I have the opportunity, express it and suggest it. It's just, there's only so many levels we can go to here, right? So, but if I almost distract it back to, if there's something I can learn from this, is pretty much that as well, that this person's not taking this information that well, then dial it back, turn it around, give a different example, as opposed to going negative and just going, you're this, you're that, which I find becomes pointless. It's now a blame situation, or telling someone else what they are. So yeah, I put some other notes here, and one of the ones, when you're being in this mindset all the time, and then choosing how I suggest it or not suggest it, or go against something that, or disagree with something, it's almost, I'm confined to kind of just picking my moments. Otherwise life becomes more difficult. But when I utilize being against the social norms, that's when I get to challenge myself the most. What I've noticed. If I stay honest and truthful with myself, then without being too aggressive or overly assertive, or I can just stay honest and then pick and choose how much I take on board what's going on. Because it gives me another level of looking at that person and being able to say, well, that's just how they perceive things. And I can disconnect that piece that I think is not true. I don't have to educate them, correct them. I can just dislocate that and then go back to what was true within the statement. What was true. Regardless of how you came to your truth, it makes no difference to me. I can now just work through, what is it? What's the subject matter that we're dealing with? as opposed to just looking at you as a person that I don't think is very smart. Which just because you believe something or you think some certain way doesn't mean you're not smart. So I want to put that out there. Just because I think you're stupid doesn't mean you're not smart or you're not useful. Doesn't mean you're not useful. Doesn't mean you can't fucking help with something. Just means I wouldn't base everything on that. Because you can be honest with every other statement that you're making. Just this bit wasn't true. But that might be just because of you've never thought about what you just said. You've never gone deeper into this whole thing. You're in a community or a group that's how they think the world spins. Okay. So let's leave that over there and let's carry on with this bit. And I'll judge you on this bit. Right? Don't hold you accountable to all these other statements or claims that you've made. Then we're okay. But don't ask my opinion on it, or don't be careful when you want me to express my opinion on it. Because I'd like to think you've got some more evidence to back up your claim. Which seldom happens. Seldom happens that you've got 6 layers of evidence. It's normally a layer or 2 deep before we go, well, that's flawed. If they're willing to think about what they said. So yeah, so I guess socially I can be quite antisocial, I guess. So I've learned to kind of compromise a lot of those statements and save it for audiences that are a little bit more educated, I guess, or less sensitive. And then the last bit I got, and this is kind of a little bit of a dig, is when you don't have that mindset and you give advice built on your mindset or what you've been told or what you've learned without going layer deeply, without questioning what you're sharing, I find that most times your advice is then built on illogical and irrational foundations, which is a problem, depending on the level of advice you're giving. The one I stumbled upon the other day was giving advice to teenagers, or I guess anybody. But when we look about, and when we try and consider that children are more susceptible to taking in bullshit, which I'm not sure is the case. I mean, you seem to be able to take it in any time. But hey, whatever. I guess as a kid, there was a point where I thought Santa Claus was probably real. Although when I think back, I don't recall it. But let's just use the assumption that I had no reason to not believe it, the magnitude of it at that point in time. So, Santa Claus is a reasonable level of ignorance that I would have had at that time why would I not believe it? If that's what I've been told and that's what I'm reading and that's what I'm hearing every freaking year, and if that's been come into me every year, all this stuff going around, and that a Santa Claus is coming through and it's on the cartoons and on the it's only at the point of when I start questioning, I'll get shared some more information. I go, yeah. I don't then go, Well, fucking hell, how come we're just continually bullshitting to each other about this? You know, so, hey, stop everybody, this ain't true. You know, oh, you're seen as a demon by telling children the truth. Oh, fucking hell, that's a good one. Telling the children the truth is upsetting and an issue. Realize what we've just said there. You know, and hey, don't get me wrong. Before everyone gets upset, like I want to dispel all this Christmas crap. Just saying that there's no other stuff around that you would say, you know, would go, well, let's tell them this story that's bullshit and make them say it's true. You'd go, no, we're not doing that. Well, then how come we're doing it for this? Oh, only because you grew up with the shit. Generally, it's just because you guys grew up with the shit and you got your fucking memories linked to it. I got it. Doesn't make it. You know, you couldn't have a true story that everyone does on a certain day. Don't want to do that. Let's all celebrate something that's true. Nah, that's fine. Or why can't we just tell the kids it's bullshit? It's not real, it's not true, but just have some fun with it. Can't do that either? No, we want them to be convinced that this is true so that they can follow my shit, so that they can be good or bad, or whatever the connotation is there, right? So yeah, you would think we'd find it difficult when the same people that have told me that those things and convinced me that that was true, and then I find out that it's not, that I would now want some advice from you for the next fucking thing. That doesn't make sense either. But yet we do, right? Because we're not going to that level on it. And so as I was mentioning, the piece I had the other day was the horoscopes. These horoscopes that are printed in these magazines and newspapers that are absolutely comprehensively debunked from any day of the week. Because we can do an experiment on it right now. Common sense goes completely out the window with horoscopes and star signs and all this carry on. Yet, someone will give someone advice to go get a tarot card reading or some type of thing as a teenager to improve, to answer questions, to answer some fucking questions in your life. You want to, you go to horoscope or star sign readings or tarot card readings. Seriously? You seriously think that's the idea? Wow. Because that's it's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. That's my advice to you, is to go, and I guess that's the level that's the ultimate level to me of how stories and your past influences your advice or wisdom, or that you're willing to pass that on, that it's a good idea. I mean, I like comic books, right? You see behind, I'm into the Star Wars things and Marvel, and I read lots of them, but I would never pass it off as true. And it's some good advice is to go read comics all day, and in the words of Superman, would be what you should use. So yeah. Anyway,